For USCFootball.com, I'm Jack Smith alongside Connor Morrissette for instant analysis from USC's 28-20 win over Nebraska here in the Coliseum. Connor, a big win for USC and a battle of two teams that are just starving for a close win. Neither of them have really been able to get that one-score win. They were combined 2-8 against other teams in one-score games, but it's USC that ends up on top to move back to 5-5.
A big win for USC in a season where wins have been hard to come by, so that's where we'll start. USC, of course, has been so much better at home than on the road, so I expected them to get the job done today, and they did. Crazy that it came down to the final play. The defense had a couple chances to end that thing a little bit earlier, but ultimately Greedy Vance gets the interception. It looked like whoever was alongside him in the defensive backfield, I think it was a safety, they kind of...
To Carlos Nicholson, I believe.
There was maybe a hold that wasn't called, but hey, we all remember the Penn State game when USC didn't get some holding calls, so that evens out there, and the defense ends up walking this thing off. Regardless of that last drive, I felt like the defense played really well tonight. We saw Elijah Hughes get a sack, so that was encouraging. On the offensive side, Jayden Maiava, I sort of feel like he's a high-variance quarterback, and we saw that tonight where he has the pick six and then the fumble, two just boneheaded mistakes, but he gets a touchdown with his legs to win the game at the end, and he made a beautiful throw to Deuce Robinson. His wow plays were really good, so he's sort of boom or bust right now. We'll see how that develops when he gets more snaps under his belt. I did feel like this was a game where you changed the quarterback. I was hoping for a little bit more, let's be honest, from the offense, but they still get the job done, and it's important to get wins right now, so credit to USC for doing that. I just overall, I don't really feel like the offense played that well.
Yeah, and we knew that Miller Moss was probably more of a, you know what you're going to get quarterback. Jayden Maiava is a gunslinger. Yeah. He's a little bit risky with the football at times, but once Miller Moss started to turn the ball over as much as he had been for USC in the past, I think it was an easy decision that if either quarterback's going to turn it over multiple times in a game, you go with Jayden Maiava, who has more of those wow plays. We saw a couple of them result in touchdowns, and to his credit, he led what ended up being a game-winning drive for the Trojans that wasted away 8 minutes, got USC the win, and Miller Moss in those situations hadn't fully been able to get those wins, but at some point USC had the football with a chance to take a 2-score lead. Different quarterback, it was the same story where USC has that fumble, and then later on they have another drive to maybe take a bigger lead. They have to settle for a field goal after a 3rd-and-8 run. Then that field goal is blocked, and it felt like this is happening again. But both of these teams, as we've mentioned, have struggled to win one-score games, and Nebraska's struggles just seem to outlast USC's in the end. So I agree. I didn't think USC played its best game, and this isn't a game where I would take a ton of confidence away that this group's all fixed now and going to go out and beat Notre Dame. But at some point, a win is a win, and for this group, they really needed one.
Absolutely. One last thing on the quarterback change, though. They make that change hoping for fewer turnovers, the ability to separate, and just to win games, and they get 1 out of the 3 today where they don't separate, they still have the turnovers, and Maiava, again, played well. He had some throws that you're really impressed with. His ability to run caused Nebraska some trouble, but like the turnovers were a huge problem with Moss, and to still have those, that was a little bit discouraging for me. But hey, it's one start. This guy has been rusty, of course, which you'd expect, so we'll see going forward how he does against the UCLA defense that's been okay, and then the real test is that final game of the year against a really good Notre Dame defense. So USC still has to win one more to get bowl eligible, of course, but a step in the right direction today for sure. And you have to feel good about the quarterback, I'd say, but I still want to see more.
And for USC, I agree with you. The story was probably on the defensive side of the ball. USC gives up 20, but the defense really only gives up 13. And we mentioned with that fumble, Nebraska starting already in field goal range. USC holds them to 3. If you take that play out of it as well, USC's defense, when put on the field at normal times, only allowed 10 points all afternoon. And we knew that things were going to be volatile for Nebraska. First game with a new offensive coordinator, Dana Holgorsen, in the middle of the season, a struggling true freshman quarterback, Dylan Raiola. The offense, I think USC did a good job of making it look as bad as it has been so far this season. They pick off Dylan Raiola twice. Jalen Smith, who had one of them post-game, said that the defensive backs wanted to play like sharks. They had a new celebration. I thought you felt the energy, and an improved USC unit in the second half. They get taken to the red zone twice, only allow field goals, and then pitch a 4th quarter shutout. I thought this was one of the most inspiring performances for the USC defense. And while they struggled tackling a little bit in the first half, and there were times where they didn't set the edge, talking with Gavin Meyer, he mentioned those were points of emphasis, and I thought points of strength for USC in the second half. Excellent tackling from guys like Zion Branch and Kamari Ramsey, and guys flying around to make tackles, force 3rd down stops, get off the field a couple of times, including that pick by Greedy Vance at the end.
That's an awful Nebraska offense, and credit to USC. They made them look awful for large stretches of this game. We remember the Maryland game where a really bad Maryland offense gets to 29 points on USC on the road. So holding this Nebraska offense to 20 points was solid. Under Matt Rule, though, when an opponent gets to 20 points, they lose. They're 0-8 when an opponent gets to 20 points or more in Matt Rule's tenure at Nebraska. So all USC had to do on offense was to get over 20 today, and they did that. Of course, there's more to be done. That's just a statistic, but I thought that was funny. Like, this Nebraska offense, that's how bad they've been. They can't score more than 20 points and win games, or they can't allow more than 20 points and win these games because they've been so putrid. So USC deserves a lot of credit for continuing to make Nebraska not look good, but what a bad look it would have been if Nebraska wins and they change offensive play callers this week with a guy who was hired last week off the street. So you avoided that, which is good. Step in the right direction defensively for sure. And I'm excited to see what happens when this group gets more game changers and guys back next year and maybe some transfer portal heavy hitters. Like, I think Danton Lynn's done a nice job with not a lot to work with. What are they going to look like with better players? That should excite USC fans because I think the coaching staff on that side of the ball has done a nice job.
Yeah, we've talked all year about maybe the demons that are following around USC, the skeletons the Trojans have in their closet. It does get worse, folks. Nebraska has really struggled. Nebraska's now 1-9 in one-score games under Matt Rule in his tenure. They last season got to the 5-win mark, then lost 4 straight at the end of the year, didn't make a bowl game. They have the longest drought in the Power 4. And this year they got to 5-1. They've lost 4 straight, and unless they can pick up a win against a better Wisconsin or probably a better Iowa team, not only better than Nebraska, but maybe at this point in the year better than USC, then once again Nebraska will fail to reach that elusive 6-win mark. So USC fans have had a lot to complain about, a lot to be disappointed about, a lot to be angry about this season. But Nebraska is living proof that it does get worse, and I don't really know how Nebraska fans can do it. There was a point where Matt Rule calls a timeout, and it looks like, okay, maybe they're going to go for it on 4th down. This was in the second half, so he wastes the second half timeout, only to send his offense back out to take a delay a game after a 3-minute wait and then punt the football away. And it's small decisions like that that's a career-defining, tenure-defining moment maybe for Matt Rule and another one-score loss. So Nebraska, I mentioned that their demons maybe outlasted and outweighed USC's, and that kind of did feel like how this game went today.
And it's disappointing that the bar is so low for USC. Congrats, you beat that team that is so bad in one-score games and is so bad on offense. So that's just kind of the way this season's gone. Like, it's nice to get a win, but I don't walk away from this game thinking, oh, the offense is fixed. Like, Indiana scored 56 points against Nebraska. USC got 28. UCLA won, scoring 27. Like, I still feel like there are some issues with this offense, and it's not that classic Lincoln Riley offense that most people expected. I believe a lot of people thought, like, oh, Maiava will come in and everything will just be fixed. And as we've talked a lot about on Instant Analysis and on our podcast, yes, he got the win today, which is the most important thing, but he doesn't have a magic wand where he just comes in and solves all of USC's problems. So I still think it's going to be a tough go against UCLA, a tough go against Notre Dame, and the job isn't done here. They got to win one more to go bowl eligible. If they win both, then great, and they are building something, but I need to see more for me to be sure that they're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I think largely the offense looked the same as it has for the majority of the year, but there were those plays here and there where Jayden Maiava slips out of a sack, or Jayden Maiava runs for a first down, or he runs for the touchdown, or zips a throw in that maybe Miller Moss couldn't make. There were a couple plays that I thought were different, and that's what USC's been looking for. And we mentioned that probably Nebraska couldn't make too much of a drastic change with Dana Holgorsen as offensive coordinator. I didn't think we were going to see a drastic change in 1 week, or I guess you could call it 2, for Jayden Maiava in this USC offense. So they took a small step forward. I think that is a reason to be excited for a USC fan, but I would agree with you. It's not like you take out Miller Moss and now the offense is getting back to that 40 points per game mark. But there were those plays that I thought he made that Miller Moss probably wouldn't have, and those were the ones that won USC the football game. But another player to shout out, Woody Marks. He went over 140 yards today. Only the 3rd individual player to rush for over 100 against Nebraska all season. And this is a Nebraska run defense that was allowing 102 rush yards per game in total. And he goes over the 1,000-yard mark on the season. That's the first time he's done so in his career. So hats off to Woody Marks. He has been USC's offensive MVP, probably total MVP. And Lincoln Riley mentioned, wasn't even sure if he was going to go today with the flu, but he reaches that career milestone.
Yeah, he was sick, and he had the Jordan flu game almost. Didn't score a touchdown, but he was fantastic. The 4th-and-1 pitch from Maiava took it 34 yards, I believe. That was one of the plays of the game. Huge. One play that we need to talk about, too, Jack, the play before that game. And I want to finish this thought on Woody, though. He's been exceptional. I agree with everything that you said. Probably the MVP on offense today as well. But that play before that pitch, oh, my God, that could have gone from bad to worse for USC, where Jayden Maiava on the 3rd and 9 drops back to pass, gets hit as he throws, and it somehow gets completed to Makai Lemon, who he wasn't even throwing the ball to. That could have been, at worst, a pick six. At best, you're probably thinking, okay, if the quarterback gets hit and the ball doesn't go to his intended receiver, it's a punt. It bounces off the Nebraska guy's helmet, and Lemon catches it, and it sets up a 4th and 1, and USC goes down and scores a touchdown after that. We also saw Ryan talk about how USC's been the most unlucky team this year. That was a lucky play, and USC, hey, sometimes you just need a little bit of luck. Massive, massive play that really turned this game around. And talking about Woody Marks, because that play happened before the Marks pitch. We needed to address that. I meant to address that. Did you get a good vantage point on that play? I'd never seen anything like that, where the quarterback completes a pass to a guy he wasn't trying to throw it to.
Yeah, I didn't realize it wasn't who he was trying to throw it to, but Mason Murphy got blown by on the play. Maiava really got hit like right in the chest, so it was behind Lemon. He reached back with the left, and USC multiple times got fortunate bounces off of the Nebraska player's face mask. So these are the things we bring up when we say USC played far from a perfect game. They got a little bit of help. They get that missed holding call at the end of the game that doesn't get called against DeCarlos Nicholson. Would have been pretty much from inside the 10, maybe even inside the 5 for Nebraska. One play, an untimed down to try and tie the game with a 2-point conversion. So this kind of felt like the game USC finally did have a couple breaks go its way. And again, USC undisciplined in the penalty game. They played into the chippiness from Nebraska. Much better job in the second half, but the first half, when players like Sear Wright, who was a former USC Trojan, is jawing with USC players, they didn't take the high road and let it slip. There were 25 yards worth of penalties back-to-back from Makai Lemon and Zachariah Branch that completely messed up at what could have been a USC drive at the end of the first half. So far from the perfect USC game, I guess is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, I think overall a step in the right direction, still a lot to fix. What I like, though, is USC has a chance to now end the season on a 3-game winning streak, build some momentum. It's nice to get this win, but they got to beat an opponent that is ranked ahead of them. The UCLA game, that would help that would get some people back in, I think, because it's on the road, even though it's still in LA. That would be nice. You get a road win finally. But I'm circling that Notre Dame game at the end of the season. For as bad as this year's been, can USC build some momentum, beat a team that they aren't favored to beat, or maybe isn't even as good as on paper? Do something that people don't expect, because this year it's been pretty par for the course. They'll play well at home. They'll probably win unless you play Penn State. They're awful on the road. So that still sort of exists. This was a nice win, but still work to be done.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll see about the flu stuff. Lincoln Riley mentioned the facility was like a MASH unit, but then Greedy Van said he didn't know anyone was sick. So you don't always know exactly what's going on, but if you take Lincoln Riley at his word, maybe this was a tough week for the Trojans to come out and have enough bodies to play, have enough 100% bodies, and it didn't sound like there were many of them. But all in all, a win for USC. How many times have we stood in front of the camera and said, another game just like this, and USC was on the losing end? So at least a step in the right direction to show they can win one of these one-score games.
Feels good to be in the W column, that's for sure. And a lot of recruits were here too, so that's good to get a win in front of your recruits. Build towards next season now, see what you have for next year. Get a bowl, use those bowl practices to build for 2025. That's the unfortunate reality that USC now is building towards next season with not a whole lot to play for. But the 2 rivalry games, and if they do get to a bowl, those bowl practices could help some of these young guys. So step in the right direction in that regard. But as we've talked about in this video, still a lot of nitpicks. I don't leave that game thinking, oh, all their problems are solved, they're good now. In year 3 of Lincoln Riley, to me, that's still an unacceptable performance.
And we'll be able to break down more of it. We get a chance to rewatch, go on Tunnel Vision tomorrow to talk about it. So make sure you tune in live tomorrow at 7 p.m. But those are our initial thoughts, instant analysis here as USC does get a win 28-20 over Nebraska here in the Coliseum. But thank you guys so much for watching. For Connor Morrissette, I'm Jack Smith. Make sure you're checking out USCfootball.com for more.